Hi, it's me again. It's time to answer a question my wife and I have been grappling with since my diagnosis. What do you do when your caregiver is also struck with a chronic illness? We're going to answer that question to the best of our ability, but we won't be able to get to it all in a single video because for us it's a massive topic and will need to be divided up to present it properly. With this first installment, I am mainly going to give the background information so things are more clear once we get into the specifics. To begin to answer this question, we're going to cover the history behind my wife's chronic illness, how we dealt with her illness before my Parkinson's diagnosis, and how do you face the reality that things are going to change. The question is a difficult one to answer, so it has taken a long time to put this together. My wife and I have spent many hours discussing how we could talk about this to other people. It's mainly because we haven't heard personally about many relationships over the years that ended up with two chronic illnesses. We feel that having a personal account of this kind of situation might provide a good opportunity or prompting for other couples to share their stories or to find some common ground with someone else. As always, don't use this video as a diagnostic tool. Seek out medical professional help. I am not a medical professional. I am explaining things from my point of view. Part 1. The history behind my wife's chronic illness. Change is all around us. It happens every day. Sometimes we don't notice it happening, but nothing ever stays the same. Once you get past the surface and look into yourself, I'm sure you would agree that there is no way you are the same person that you were when you left high school. Your life experiences have altered you, and how you look at the world and how you interact with it. How about being the same person you were when you got married? 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 25 years ago? I'm sure we have all at least changed a little bit. Endometriosis. That's what our chiropractor suggested was afflicting my wife after about 10 years of us searching for the answer. Thankfully, it turned out he was right. By the time we had hopped around the medical system and had finally seen a gynecologist who confirmed it through surgery, endometriosis was the culprit. We didn't know at the time was that no matter what treatment was thrown at it, it would dodge each one and slowly increase the symptom of pain to the point of 24/7 painkillers. I'm not going to get into the medical explanation of endometriosis, mainly because, hey, there is a lot of excellent medical information out there already. I'm only going to say that it can be a persistent chronic pelvic pain condition that mainly affects women. When my wife and I married 26 years ago in 1995, it was not well known. Now, when we talk to people about it, they usually say that they know someone who has it. Since we know a lot more about it, my wife and I can trace the endometriosis back to before we were dating and had met each other. One interesting side note is that when I met my wife, she said that she needed to have children right away, but she didn't know why. I said we needed to wait, but of course, and thankfully, she got her way. Our son was born just over a year after we got married, then our daughter, and just under 3 years later. We are fortunate to have them both because some treatments and symptoms of endometriosis can limit or eliminate the ability to get pregnant. After nearly 30 years of chasing the pain together and many exasperated doctors, she is still looking for a solution. We had no idea how much endometriosis would change us. Part 2. How we dealt with her illness before my diagnosis. Before you say, I do, you make a lot of promises, and one of them is to be together in sickness and in health. Oh my goodness, we did not know how endometriosis was going to test us with that. At the point of saying I do, endometriosis hadn't begun to dominate our relationship, but over time, I lapsed into the habit of letting it define us. When it became our main focus, we would ask, what can we do to minimize the pain? What medical treatment is out there that we can try? Is there another doctor that we can see? Will it ever go away? Because for some people it does. In a strange way, this focus is what helped bond us together. As the sole breadwinner, it gave me focus. I needed to work as much as possible to pay for the treatments that would pop up and to also pay the mortgage. We had originally decided that we would raise our children with one parent at home all the time, which actually partnered well with the endometriosis, because in the end, that is the situation that would develop. So, in a way for me, in our relationship, I became the main caregiver. When my wife needed me at the hospital for a treatment or surgery, I would take time off for that. When we needed extra money for an expensive treatment, I would work overtime. Mixed in with all of this, our daughter was also diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when she was 8 years old. This added a whole nother dimension because it became another main focus. To allow me to stay working full time, our son took on a lot of the caregiving in between his busy soccer schedule that my wife did a lot of the driving for, and we were blessed with lots of help from family members, friends, and good neighbors. Through organization, support, and eventually homeschooling for both children when they were older, we were able to make it through. And sickness and in health was definitely in the forefront, but where was the health part? Part 3. How do you face the reality that things are going to change? May 28, 2017, Diagnosis Day, the day that change was forced upon us. No matter what I did, I had to face the reality that there was something wrong with me. My body was changing. In my early 40s, it was beginning to fail me. What I really want to talk about is the strange and somewhat confusing dilemma that developed that mainly affected me. I was the caregiver. That's how I identified myself. Me needing care? No, that was not an option. So what happened was that the earth shifted below my feet, nearly swallowing me up, and I had to re-examine my role in the family and change gears. You see, through 22 years of hard programming, I had come to see my wife and daughter as the only ones needing care. And of course, my son was caught in that vortex as well. I was fine. I had forgotten that despite the treatments she had been through and the now constant 24/7 painkillers, my wife was still the same loving person that I married, and I needed her to be my caregiver. But Parkinson's was scary, and when you come face to face with a major life-altering diagnosis, you need your spouse or another close support person to lean on. So now because Parkinson's was new, it became the main focus, and the endometriosis faded into the background for the foreseeable future. Blood tests, MRIs, and doctor visits became the new reality for me. Work became modified, and now I could no longer just work overtime whenever we needed something. More changes were signaled in the future. And somehow I had to learn to adjust. I needed to confide in and to look for support from my wife. She had been the main caregiver for our daughter. She was now the main caregiver for me. Change is a funny thing. Sometimes it's gradual, like for me and my wife, similar to the programming of care developed over 22 years. Sometimes change is sudden, like getting a Parkinson's diagnosis, and you have no option but to change. What I've learned over time is that I really have no advice on how to cope with this type of sudden change, except that you really must decide how best to deal with it, because if you don't, it could overwhelm you as it did to me. It was now an opportunity for us to learn how to caregive for each other, and that will lead us into part 2 of this topic. If you've made it this far, then I thank you for listening to our story. Caring for your caregiver is an extremely important topic, as we can sometimes take that core support person for granted. Believe me, I've done it. So let's take the time to give that person a big thank you and do something today that you know they might appreciate. Please take the time to like or subscribe if you would like to see more content like this, and leave a comment if you have something to share about caregiving in your situation. See you next time, and I hope we can take this journey together. Thanks and goodbye.